Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Good Share podcast with Ryan and Ice. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Ice.
So, man, what you up to?
Dude, it's day 3. What is it? Is today Wednesday?
Today is Wednesday.
So technically it's day 2 because they didn't have school on Monday because it was a holiday. But I want to call it day 3 of snow day because, down here in Tennessee, they can't handle, although it is pretty bad. I'm not going to make fun of it. Like, there's ice all over.
It did look like you got plenty
The
of ice.
high yesterday was like 19 degrees, so nothing is thawing. But I have learned over the last year and a few months that if I don't have a balance of being on the road and being at home, I go really crazy and I get really, really cranky. Like if I'm out on the road for too long, then it sucks. Obviously, I want to come home. But if I'm home for too long, it's like, man, I feel like my life doesn't have a purpose. And I just really need to get out of it. And it's not like, oh, we need to get out of the house so I can just run to Kroger. No, it's like I need to get out and like
do something.
Like be a productive person. Like not just go to the gym, go lift or go run, but like go do the thing that I do for a living.
Right.
And that's just when it's like when I'm home and everyone is at school and work. But then in a week like this week, when everyone is home, it's like, I love my family, but I need a little space.
Man, I'm in the same I'm slightly the other direction a little bit. Is I found that I've learned to enjoy my solidarity, even if I'm here. But I think it's because, like, unlike you, I am really into programming, and I find a tremendous amount of enjoyment in causing myself the biggest headache possible. Because programming literally is nothing but fixing problems. That's all programmers do.
Yeah.
Is you constantly troubleshoot why what you're trying to do isn't working.
That sounds terrible. I mean, that's what I'm doing with my everyday life. So trying to do it with a piece of machinery would be even worse.
So you know what? I thought of an interesting topic that we could talk about.
Okay.
And I was thinking, and it has a little bit to do with being home and also being out. And it's how we kind of made playing music or being musicians a career, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
Because it sustains you. It sustains me whenever I choose. And I think that's where things get a little different between you and I.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of history or backstory on how music came into your life and became a player, and how it entered mine and it became a playing piece in my life.
Yeah.
And then where we are now, and also the current situation of the world,
right?
And how that's played a role, and how it compares or contrasts to how current younger generation adopt or what's the word I'm trying to say? How they become
like adapt to what it's like. Yeah, well, that's a good topic. I mean, you want to go? I don't think I know the entire story of like your musical upbringing. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first.
Okay.
No, I'll keep it quite condensed. That way we can not,
like a can of Campbell's.
Yeah, I'll keep it like a can of Campbell's, baby. So when I first started playing music, it was a very young age, and it was my father was very, very much into family band, being in a band. I think he really, truly enjoyed it a lot. He enjoyed all the aspects of what it is. But I think one of the biggest ones was he enjoyed being part of a group playing music.
Okay. Yeah.
But I also think he liked the whole thing of like whether or not he knew it, he kind of managed his bands. He was the guy that booked the bands. He was the band lead, but also the band manager and the band producer, right? He had all them hats on.
Right.
And that was a thing he really enjoyed, but he bestowed that to my brother and I, right? So
Okay.
he wanted us to be involved in that. And that was a way for him to do something with us, I think. Because before then, he was out a lot on the weekends. And of course, he worked, 9 to 6, 9 to 7 in the evenings. And then he'd be gone on the weekends. So we didn't get to see him a whole lot. And I think he wanted that to change. So the way to do that was he decided, I remember this clearly. I even remember the house we were in when he decided he was quitting the band that he was fairly successful with. They were booked a lot and they played a lot and people wanted them. And he just was like, I'm done and I'm starting a band with my sons. It was just that dry and it was just done, right? And Timmy and Tim was too young really to I think comprehend what was going on. And I was very like wow, that's something because that's life-changing for a 8-year-old.
Right.
So he worked with us and then we started a family band. We played lots of square dances and lots of we did the Animal Club circuit.
Right. Which if anyone doesn't, that's like the Moose, the Eagles, things like that. 'Cause
Yeah.
when you guys used to talk about that, it took me forever to connect the dots that that's what you meant. I used to be like, I don't know what animal clubs are. Like,
Right, what's that? We call it the McVeigh Safari Tour.
yeah, are they playing at a zoo? I don't understand what they're doing.
So that's what happened there, and then that kind of snowballed into us sort of outgrowing around the 14, 15, 16 years old or so. We wound up wanting to play with peers. Because before that, we were playing with all adults. It was just, which was tough because most of the adults in our hometown did not want to play music with kids. That just was not interested in it. It was kind of sort of a liability because at that time, the biggest booking anything was animal clubs. I mean, that was it. So at first, a lot of the animal clubs refused to book us because we were underage. And so my mother actually did research and found that there was a law that as long as we were in the venue with our guardian and we were not served and we were not at the bar at any time, and any time we had to go to use the restroom, we had to be accompanied by a legal aged adult, right?
Yeah.
So, and there was child labor laws and all this stuff, and she did all the research on it and was able to influence some particular clubs that, there's nothing illegal happening here. We're their parents and we're with them all the time. So we wound up playing, but before that, we couldn't get booked any of those, and those were like bread and butter gigs.
Right.
And the older musicians, number one, didn't want to be seen on stage with kids.
Of course.
Number two, because we weren't good. I mean, we were very bad. I mean, we were learning. Every job was a whole nother learning experience. So they didn't want that to happen, and they didn't want to lose their gigs. I mean, because basically, if you signed up and said, "Yeah, we'll go out and play with you guys," and kind of help you get your start, they basically were saying we're good to not be playing every weekend because you're not going to play a hog roast or a family reunion every week, or even a square dance. But we did play often. But we did have adults that did play music with us and were not ashamed or afraid of any of it. And Bill Cole was one. Kevin Bates was another. Jim Durbin. He's no longer with us. Neither is Bill Cole. And Bill Moody and Johnny Dotson and who else? Lori Mullet,
I've only known one of these names so far.
right? I'm just naming them
Yeah.
because these were the people that were not afraid
Totally.
at the time, and it's the least I can do. Of course, my dad and my uncle, and I think that pretty much nails it down. But I mean, that's literally like just a handful of people.
Yeah.
It's just enough to have a band, but have people sort of some backups.
Right.
But did that, and then we wound up playing music with some of our peers, and then went out to Vegas and did shows out there for about a week or so, competition thing. Come back, the band kind of flew apart because the manager was a liar and a thief. And Jim Bruce, you know who you are. And then there was another female singer by the name of Haley Watson out of Zanesville that we wound up playing for. Me, my brother, Joe Eric, and Mitch Stalling Jr. Wound up playing music for her. And then we wound up getting another guy that could really sing. His name was Dan Stansel. And he was a pretty awesome dude. But then some stuff kind of got real ugly with our father and one of the other boys' fathers. And the band just flew apart. I mean, it just was like bang. It went off like a firework. I mean, it was really not good. And after that, all of us kind of were never really comfortable, like, talking to one another, except for Mitch. Mitch was pretty cool, but Mitch was neutral. Mitch is a bass player. That's what bass players are. They're always neutral.
Right.
After that, I met you at the Battle of the Bands thing in Coshocton, and you liked the Hornsby I was spinning, and and then we had, at that time, I kind of got into recording because we went to Nashville with another band that was still the family band.
Yeah.
And we lost our butts down there at a studio. They wound up charging us way more than they actually were supposed to, because I think people are, they're just hungry.
Yeah.
But this little place was just outside Nashville, out in
That's
Burns.
back when studios could do that because people couldn't just do it at home.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You had no other means.
Yeah.
So, and actually saying that, when we got back, I was so disgusted because my mom and dad had to wind up like putting stuff on credit cards to pay off this debt to this recording studio, right in Burns. I think it's Dixon County,
Okay.
in Tennessee, neighboring county of Davison. So I think it's a neighboring county. It might be one county over.
It's close enough.
It's close enough. Yeah, it's out 40. Anyway, so when that all happened, I was like just shocked, right? So, Dad, I want to learn how to record stuff, So he had a friend up in Canton that had like a bunch of old gear that wasn't being used anymore. One of them was an Atari, not an Atari, but an Otari. Otari 8-track reel-to-reel.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's only 1/2-inch tape, so it wasn't like anything too crazy. And I think one or two of the tracks were no good. Like they,
of course,
they were polarized, or I don't remember, but they didn't work. And an old 16x8 Allen Heath recording console, or not recording. Yeah, sure. Why not? And everything was dirty on it. Every single thing. Like you move a fader up and down. It was you.
Oh yeah.
So it was one of these consoles where you had to record your music and then you worked for hours on a mix and turned everything you need to turn. And then when you're like, okay, I think it's there, and you listen to it over and over and make sure you don't have whatever tweaks, and then you get the DAT machine going, and then you send it off to the DAT. Don't touch anything. Nobody breathe on it, because It could make any kind of
Right.
noise, and you hope to God that the damn reel-to-reel didn't catch something in the head, and then you hear a scraping noise or a hiccup, or oh my God, or the power go out. Oh, geez. Anyway, so all that, and I learned how to like hook up all that stuff myself because we were going to have somebody come help us, and he said he would, but he never showed up. And I was just sick of waiting. So I was like, I'll figure it out. And it took me a few days, but I figured out how to wire everything up. And I was probably, I'd say maybe 17, 18 at that time.
Okay.
Probably about 17, 18 years old somewhere. Well, no. I was much younger because this was before Joe and Mitch and all that. So this
really?
was when
Okay.
I was, So I wasn't able to drive yet. I was like 14 or 15 years old. But so then anyway, that happened. Wound up moving to Nashville, got down there. You were in Philly.
Yeah.
And I was working just weird, like little gigs for people at film companies because I was into that. And then I would do some studio stuff for Rob Royer off of the Row, and then I would go do some web stuff for somebody else, just stuff here and there. And then I remember talking to you, and you're like, how is the climate down there, pretty much? And I'm like, well, it's pretty cool. There's a lot going on. And then I talked to you, or I don't know if I talked to you, and I suggested that you quit school and move to Nashville, and I would help you find work or get to work or something, and you could live with me until, whenever that happened.
Yeah.
And then that pretty much is what happened there. But that is as condensed as I can make it.
Ah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it only took, 7 minutes? I was watching a timer. I think it took 7 minutes.
I felt way longer. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Well, I'll see if I can keep mine as condensed as yours. I grew up loving music. My mom sings, plays piano. She did both of those in church a lot from, as early as I can remember. I always kind of had an attraction to the drums, but I didn't really take it serious until 6th grade when they had like band auditions for 6th grade band. And I remember thinking, at the time I was like way more into sports and things like that. And I remember thinking like, I don't know if I want to do band. Not necessarily because I thought it was like nerdy or geeky, but like I just didn't know if that's something I wanted to like devote time to. But I went down and, in 6th grade, like, they're assuming nobody plays anything. So they like the band director has all the instruments out and you can try whatever you want. Well, I had no interest in trying anything but drums. So that's what I did. And it turned out that some of my other friends were going to do it. So I was like, oh, well then, it'll be fun if I'm doing it and I'm hanging out with them more. And then probably like a month into like just playing snare drum and like learning rudiments and learning how to read music and things like that. I really felt like, oh, this is like what I'm supposed to be doing. Or maybe not even what I'm supposed to be doing, but it became like, I can't not do this. And I really wanted to do it for a living. And even today, I kind of feel like this, like even if I didn't do it for a living, I would still have to play drums. Like, even if it's just to play to a record or whatever, like it's just a thing. Yeah. What?
It's strange because I've heard similar things.
Yeah.
Like of that.
But you didn't
like
have
saying,
that experience.
I didn't have that experience. Like that was not something like I can't relate to that feeling of like there was a calling or a connection. Like it was more like, for me, it was more like, here it is, try it out. But my father was so into it. It was like, here, try this out. Oh, by the way, there's nothing else to do. Let's keep doing that.
Yeah, right. Like this is the thing I really want you to do. So I hope you're enjoying it.
Right. Well, I guess it could have been that or hunting. And I was totally like, nah, I do not like hunting. I don't like anything with it. I don't like anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So you had this.
like, I don't know what you want to call it, like just some sort of, it's like
would you similar to in like an epiphany, maybe?
Yeah.
Or a eureka moment?
Kind of. Like, if I want to get real, like, sappy about it, like, it's like a thing you didn't know was missing from your life.
Okay.
And then you find that thing. And now it's like, all of a sudden, if I don't have that, a big piece of me is going to be missing. But I didn't know that it was missing before that. You know what I mean?
That's weird, man.
I mean, that's how it felt. And And I would say by 7th grade, I was pretty dead set on, like, I'm going to figure out how to do this for the rest of my life and make a living.
Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
And like, as much as you want to take credit for moving me to Nashville, you can take a little credit. But that was actually a plan for me probably from about that time, from like 7th grade. Because, so I was very fortunate that, like, the church I grew up in, which I do not like churches like this at all anymore. But the church I grew up in was, like, very into, like, oh, let's be modern and let's try and be like a big super church and have like a praise band and all this stuff. At the time, it was great because it was another opportunity for me to play. And the music minister at the church at the time, Barry Hardesty, what's up, who's now the band director at my old high school, but he was the music minister at church. Super cool. Like, he exposed me to a lot of records that I don't know if I would have been hip to so early on in my life. And he had total faith in me that this, like, 13-year-old kid who, I mean, I had only been playing snare drum in 6th grade band. I mean, I would dabble on the drum set at church, but I didn't have one. I didn't get one till my birthday, which was the summer before 7th grade. But he had total faith in me to, like, I could just do it. And I remember him giving me, like, a couple lessons of, like, well, here's some of the worship songs we're going to do on Sunday. Play something that feels kind of like this, and, like, maybe play a fill like this. And I remember, like, you know, he showed me like 2 fills or something and a couple beats, and I just played them all the time. You know, like, because when you're that young, like, you're not very good, but you'll, like, hyper focus on these things of, like, well, this is what so and so wants me to play for this, so I'm gonna, like, own them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna play them with such conviction because I can't just think off the top of my head and play whatever I want. Not yet, you know.
Sure.
So anyway. But the Nashville tie-in is that through church, there was this couple there, John and Julie Turnbull, another shout out.
Yep.
They were, like, at the time, this was like 97, and, like, the whole, like, kind of acoustic electric singer-songwriter duo-y thing was, like, really popular, right? They had just made a record, not in Nashville, but with a bunch of Nashville people. And they wanted to play some live shows, like, in and around Coshocton and Ohio and whatever. And because of me playing in church, they asked me to play. Now, these are, like, adults. I mean, at the time, they were probably in their mid or late 20s. But they're like 10 to 15 years older than I am.
Yeah.
And then the guitar player was in his 40s, and the bass player was probably in his 30s. And I remember thinking, like, I'm like 13, 14 years old and I'm playing with these adults. So it was like a similar situation to you. Right. And I remember them giving me the record on cassette and being like, yeah, just learn these 12 songs. And I, cassette. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, I'm in, like, way over my head. But it was one of those things where I would, like, play along to that record every day until I learned, like, I could not go off of what was on the record at all. But it was like, if we played these songs just like the record, I could play, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, some of those things, Rick May was the drummer on that record, great player. Some of those things are still ingrained in me. Like, I bet if I sat down right now and put that record on, I could play some of the fills, like, note for note still. Cause I would shed on them so much then. So anyway, all through junior high and high school, I did every musical thing that I could. So I did, like, marching band, concert band, jazz band, pep band, did like solo and ensemble competitions. I was in junior high choir because they take anybody, you don't have to audition. And I then for like, I think my freshman and sophomore years of high school, I played drums for the show choir. I didn't sing, but I played drums. So I was like doing as much as I could. And it was so ingrained to me that like, oh, well, after this, then you'll go to school for music and you'll get a degree and like whatever. Mm-hmm. And I tried that for a year. And the only good thing about going to Capital University was that that's where I met my wife. That was good, but it was a horrible, miserable experience besides that. Like, it just wasn't a great fit program-wise. Like, they really wanted you to be like a well-rounded percussionist that could like go play like a Broadway show or something. And as much as I love listening to like four mallet marimba players and stuff, I do. It's like a beautiful instrument, and I have mad respect for people that can play it well. I have no interest in doing that myself.
Right.
It was never something I wanted to do. So I went there for a year. It was terrible. I moved back home, and I guess I had met you and your brother the summer before I went to Capitol at that Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you said it was like in between band changeovers and you were spinning Bruce Hornsby cause you were like the sound guy for the show.
Yep.
And I just remember as soon as I heard it come on, I like kind of stood up from setting up my gear and just out loud. I mean, I knew who it was, but at the time I hadn't met anyone in Coshocton that like really knew who Bruce Hornsby was outside of like, that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I think it was Spiderfingers that was playing. And I just stood up and I went, is this Bruce Hornsby?
Yeah. And you said it like, does everyone know that this is Bruce?
Exactly. Like, you guys know this is Bruce Hornsby, right? I thought it was in like an alternate universe.
Is this a mistake? Somebody let something play too long?
Yeah, exactly. But you were on stage like running cable or something. You were like, yeah, man. And that was like how we met.
Yeah.
And I think after I played that show, you and your brother came up to me and just said, hey, we really like the way you play. We have this band. Let's jam sometime.
Yep.
And I think like a couple months went by, and then like in August, like right before I had to leave for school, we jammed at your studio. And I remember talking to you on the phone, and you told me where it was, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy has a studio. Okay. Like, it's just going to be like a garage with some blankets and whatever.
Some microphones and some really bad stands.
Yeah. You got like a boom stand that just keeps falling.
And a powered head with two speakers, and one of them doesn't work.
Exactly. But I got out there and I see this 3-car garage, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I walk in, and it's like this totally. At that point in my life, it was the most legit, I think probably anyway, the most legit recording studio I had been in. Like, it was like,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but you say that, but like, dude, you don't know what you had at like, I mean, no. you know now, but I don't know if you knew at the time. Like, I mean, 15, 16 years old, you have that in your backyard. Like,
it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was quite the arm twisting we had to give our dad to let us convert that garage. Well, actually, what happened was it was a 3-car garage, big garage. You know exactly.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah,
it was huge.
I wish I had that in my backyard right now because I would put the studio in it.
It was like 9.5-foot ceilings, and because it was built for not just a garage to put your car in, but my grandfather built that garage to also work on vehicles. So it had like extra space in the back, so you could have lines of toolboxes and whatnot. Okay. So when my dad said we could build a studio in the garage, that was all I needed to hear. And so he went to work one day, and my uncle, which at the time owned a construction company, he come down to give me a hand and help me lay out walls. And by the time my dad got off work and got home, the walls were done. And we took the entire garage. And my dad was like, I didn't say you could have the entire garage.
Well,
He thought we were going to take like a bay.
right. Well, you
And I
left
was
him a
like,
little bit
that's
of-
not good. That's not big enough.
you left him a little bit of room in the front. I mean, you can still get the garage
Yeah.
doors up.
Yeah, you could pull like
Half a car in.
maybe half a car in. I mean, what more could you want?
Anyway, so, and you know what's funny is I remember at the time, this shows you how like little I had developed as a musician at that point in my life. I was 18. I remember playing with you guys and thinking, well, first of all, it was a different world. I didn't grow up playing country music. And I don't think
Right.
you guys probably grew up like listening to the records that I was listening to, you know, like a lot of like hard rock bands and stuff, and like being in like original bands with kids from school or whatever. Like it was just a different thing.
Totally different.
But I remember one of the things that really struck me at the time was your guitar playing, and I remember thinking like, this guy, he plays so fast, and your tone was like really clean. It wasn't like disguised by like a bunch of distortion or whatever. You could kind of like fudge how fast you're playing. It was like you had to really like play every note. And that's like a chicken picking country thing. And I hadn't played with any guitar player like that, you know, like my best friend at the time, he was like really into like rock and metal. So he was like coming more from a shredder standpoint.
Right. And Tom was good.
Tom's a great guitar player, but it was just a different thing. And I just remember thinking like, wow, I was like that was like the one thing that stuck with me. Is like, this dude is so fast, you know? And just also that
hilarious.
like, you know, like you call on all these songs, you guys are singing all these harmonies and stuff. And it was like, I had been in bands. Well, I mean, I played with John and Julie. I had been in a band with Tom. I had done Liquid Earth, which is funny because we recorded on an 8-track half-inch reel-to-reel my first time, but we did it in Tim Ross's living room.
That's right.
And we had to like, we could only do like, we only had 4 microphones or something, none of which were any. I think the SM57 was like the best mic we had.
I remember coming over to his place with you to help out on something.
That was the second time when I wasn't in the band anymore.
Oh,
but they asked me to
right.
play drums on the record because I think the drummer that they had couldn't do it or something. Yeah, and they borrowed gear from you because then you mixed that. It was like a 4-song EP.
Yeah, I did.
But this was like in high school. I hadn't met you yet, and we did a record on an 8-track reel-to-reel. It was the same place. It was in Tim's house. But dude, get this. Our overhead mic stand. Remember that old hardware case I had? That were like with the wheels on the bottom that would always tip over.
And the buckles always broke.
Buckles always broke. We had 2 short mic stands. So we threw a 58 in the kick drum because we didn't have a kick mic.
Right.
My headphones are all tangled up. We put a 57 between like the rack tom, snare drum, and hi-hat. We had like some cheap, like Radio Shack kind of vocal mic between the 2 floor toms.
Yeah, because you didn't have enough for each tom.
Right.
So it had to share.
We only had 4 mics. And then the overhead was, we just put
overhead.
the overhead. Oh, and here's the best part. It's not even overhead because we don't have a tall mic stand. We took my hardware case, put it out in front of the kit, probably about 6 or 8 feet, probably 6 feet, and took the handle on top, and we had like another 58 or something. Or maybe we had 2 57s, I don't remember. And like put it under the handle so then it would come down and hold it. So the mic is just like 5 feet in the air, pointed at the kit like 6 feet away. That was our overhead. See, you had like a legit studio in your house, and that's how we recorded our EP or the first record. And you know what? You can tell too, because it sounds terrible. And we did like four tracks of drums. So you have 4 tracks open, but we bounced them to stereo to like 1 and 2 or however it was 7 and 8, so we could record everything else.
Right.
So we had to hope that like the stereo mix of drums was how we wanted it.
Yeah, because that was it.
Because it's like, well, I want more snare drum. Too bad. Like,
too bad. That's where it is.
So,
it's been printed.
Yeah. we can give you more left or right, but that's it. And it's not even left or right because it's just mono. But anyway, so that was like my recording experience up until I met you. So I did a year at Capitol. It was terrible. Moved back home. Ended up playing with you guys all the time. It was super educational. As far as like up to that point, I had really learned a lot as far as like technique, and like I was a good player, but I wasn't a good like social player. Like I don't think I had played enough in real world situations with other people.
Yes, that was definitely something that was noticeable when we first started, like just you and I, because after Capitol, you took a year off, right? Was it a year?
Yeah, I was home.
Or season off at least.
I was home for a year.
And then you played music with us, but before we got like hot and heavy with gigs into, I think it was closer to the fall. Yeah. Well, no, we played a bunch
I guess
it would have been July, August.
Yeah.
Was real. It was pretty heavy. It was like every weekend.
Yeah.
And then into the winter months, we played the Dollar, and which was a rough freaking club.
Yeah, but man, I mean, it says everything about it when before us there was a mother-daughter strip team. Strip team. That's how you. I mean, that tells you what kind of place we were playing.
Yeah, if you weren't into the mother, there was one right behind her that looked a lot like her.
Either way, you were going to the same home with them.
Talk about keeping it in the family.
Jeez. Anyway.
Yeah. So then there was that place.
So, but like gigs like that are really, they're good. Like,
oh yeah,
people need to have gigs like that.
Oh yeah.
So
those are very deep learning.
Yeah.
Going on right
because
there.
we started doing that gig with the four of us, Timmy singing, but like after 2 weekends, Timmy got mono and he was out for like 2 months.
Yeah.
So you and Jimmy,
and he was covering 95% of the material.
So you and Jimmy had to like split fronting the band. And I'll never forget, like the first weekend we did without Timmy, I remember thinking, well, even when Timmy was there, that was like the first time we had done like, that long of a gig where it was
like 3.5 hours
or 4. Right? I think it was 4 45-minute shifts.
Oh,
it was like 45 on, 15 off from like 10 to 2.
Right. And before that, we were doing like a lot of the festivals and stuff.
Do like 2-hour set or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, okay, well, I know like these songs we do in a set that's that long, but I remember thinking like, man, we're going to have to play 2 more hours. And you guys didn't seem worried about it at all. And I don't know if I showed it, but inside I was like, I had no idea. I have no idea. Like, they're just going to start calling songs that I don't know.
Dude, you were playing. That's the one thing I say about you that it irritated me sometimes is that you would be so nonchalant and so like playing it cool that it would tick me off because I'm like, is this like really seriously not a big deal? Like,
oh, dude, inside I was having a meltdown. There was only one time I remember losing my cool on stage, and you came and you gave me the what for afterwards.
What was that?
And it was like a big deal. Like I mean, the fact that I still remember it shows you how much it shaped me. We were playing at Rachel Longaberger's for one of the Longaberger Bees. We were on the outdoor stage. And it was like we were doing like it was like we were doing a Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was the first day, the first show. And we had been doing a bunch of gigs with just the 4 of us, but I think Joe was going to come and play keys with us.
Yep.
And so you guys were calling a bunch of songs that you used to do with him that I didn't know. And there was one in particular that like it had some weird ending.
And, oh my God.
And the ending
was the Toby Keith song.
I don't know if it was that one.
Oh, okay.
It was a different, that was at Silver Dollar where I missed that ending, but I don't remember what song. It was probably something real standard that if I was to play it today, it'd be real easy. And I would read your body language and know exactly how we're going to end it. But at the time I didn't have any experience doing that.
And also, like late '90s, early 2000s, country music was throwing in these kind of oddball, like 2/4 bar things, and also like these weird counted outros. That would just like there's be this vocal thing, and it seemed like it was very ad libby when the band would like do their hits.
Right.
And if you didn't hear that stuff, or listen to it regularly, you had no idea. It was so left-footed.
Yeah. So I wish I could remember what it was, but anyway, the ending came up, and it just like I'm trying to read what you're like, you're trying to play guitar and also like communicate to me, and it was just like this big like blah blah blah. And I think I felt, I don't know if I was reading the stage correctly or not, but inside I knew that I had messed up, and I felt like everyone's eyes were on me. Like, how can you not know how to,
an idiot.
Yeah. How do you not know what that is? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was like the last song of the set or something. And I think I just said, like, I remember kind of standing up and be like, well, maybe if we just rehearse once in a while or something. And I didn't say it like super loud, but it was loud enough for everybody.
Really upset.
It was like loud enough for everybody here. And I kind of just like, that house music started playing. And I walked off stage and I was sitting at a table or whatever. And you came over and you were like, okay, I understand your frustration, but you can't lose your cool like that on stage. And you said something effective like, we're all just up there having fun. Like, no one was really that upset. Like, we didn't expect you to really know how it ended. You'd never played the song before.
Huh.
So.
Wow. That's fairly diplomatic of me, I guess.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you were a little upset. And I apologize because I felt bad for doing it, but like in the moment, I just felt like I looked like an idiot, and everyone on stage and everyone out there listening knows how this song ends except for me. And it's like, well, how does this dumbass not know how this song goes? You know what I mean? Like right. But that's going like so fast through your mind. So then you just go, well, rehearse. I would know how it goes, like, which is so dumb because we hardly ever rehearsed. And since my time living in Nashville, you know how many official rehearsals I've had for gigs? Like 5.
Yeah, I was going to say not
I've
many.
lived here for 13 years, 14 years. Like, it just isn't a thing. But that was like educational on 2 points. A, you can't do that on stage. If you want to have words like that when you walk off stage and vent your frustration, fine. Can't do it on stage in front of people.
Right.
Because that only makes the situation worse.
Yeah.
Most people out there probably didn't even know that we messed up the ending.
And if they thought it probably was perfect, like we wrote it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until someone on stage
acknowledges
that they're unhappy with something. And then people are like, oh, he's mad about something. I wonder what happened. Then it becomes a scene.
And then the other thing it taught me is, man, you should take playing music seriously, but like have fun doing it. Like, just, like, I think now I would be able to, I would laugh it off,
Right.
I would like, and then if someone came at me with like, I would just say, well, hey man, I've never played it before. I wouldn't be like, well, F you, I've never played it before. I would just be like, well, sorry, I've never played it before. I didn't understand what you were trying to tell me. Like, that's the best I can musically interpret on the fly what you're saying with your eyeballs to me.
Right.
And
the thing is, like, you take and rewind that, right? And you take and place me like, it had been probably 6 years before, right? And put the 6 year before me on stage with you, then we both would have had a hissy fit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So because you would have just lost it right there on me.
Yes.
Instead of
and then you would have been
taking 5 minutes. Yeah.
And been like,
probably never
would have just got a rehearsal together, McVeigh.
Yeah. And we never would have played music together again.
Yeah, right. And never would have.
So anyway. But yeah, we so all that to say, we played a bunch that summer. It was great. We played all kinds of different gigs, played into the winter. Yeah, played Silver Dollar where we added like 2 hours of not knowing what songs were. And that's what that story led me to is I think I was able to handle that. I was still having a meltdown inside about like, I gotta know 90 minutes worth of songs I've never played. I just have to be able to figure out what these guys are doing, while looking at their backs. Like, but I think I handled it a little better because it was just one of those things where you'd turn around and be like, okay, you've never played this, but it goes like this. This is kind of the feel. Here's the tempo. It starts like this. Oh, it's got this weird thing in the bridge. And then it ends like this.
And because of Timmy getting mono, that it was, we were 3-piecing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For like what, 4 weeks or?
It was like a month or a month and a half. It was, yeah.
And so that led me to building a talkback mic for the first time. It was that the first time, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, because you had an open channel because Timmy wasn't there.
I don't ever remember doing it before then.
No. But yeah.
Was super convenient.
Yeah. So it would just be one of those things where you would say that, it'd take you 10 seconds to say all that. And I have to, this 3.5 minute song. And then you just play it. Well, now that I live here and I play on Broadway, that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Right.
So that was like a great lesson in, man, like, one of the people I play with, one of the things she tells me down there is like, the reason I like to have you on these gigs is when someone brings a 20 up to tip us and they request a song and the other 3 people on stage know it, but I don't. Me, not her. Mm-hmm. I'll just say, yeah, I've never heard it. Let's play it.
Yeah.
And I ask somebody to tell me that 10 seconds worth of information that you would have told me. Sometimes you don't even get that, but it's like, I'm not going to say I don't know it. Let's not play it because that's $20 that we could be making.
Yes.
And that person isn't they're not going to know if it's just like the record or not. Like 90% of the time, people down there, like they just want to hear the chorus of the song because that's their favorite part. So if we biff like, oh, there's a 2/4 bridge, 2/4 bridge going into or a 2/4 bar going into the bridge, and I missed it, or there's a diamond that I played through or something, they don't even know.
They don't know.
As long as we start together and end together,
that's it.
You're golden. So,
and the thing I liked about doing that part, because that happened a lot with going to jams and at a young age, is you just learn that improvisation is all part of being in a band. Yeah. And the thing I really enjoyed about like getting in with bands that maybe one other guy sort of knows the song, and then and usually it's like maybe the bass player will know the song. And then another guy will be like, yeah, I remember. And then I'm clueless, right?
Right.
The part that I really like about that is now I am given the opportunity to make my part. Right. Because everyone is under the assumption that I have no idea how this thing goes. So whatever you play, as long as it's in the same key and tempo and time with us, go for it, dude.
Yeah.
So I have the freedom to then put what I believe is, this is how this song, I interpret it, and this is how I would play it if I were actually recording the thing. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. There's very few times where I'll get into this, but you know what I'm talking about when I say you get into this one thing, and no matter how many different things that you try, none of them quite seem to fit. Yeah, just don't. Right. It's like a square peg in a round hole thing. Yeah.
So
very cool.
But that was really educational. But then I went to school. I did 2 years in Philly, and I think my first year in Philly was your first year in Nashville.
Yep.
And we stayed in touch a bunch, and I had a great experience in Philly. It was like the only reason I really didn't go for the next 2 years is I couldn't afford it. Like even with some scholarships.
Yeah, I remember you saying it was going to be super
It was too expensive, and it's hard for me to justify coming out of school with like an $80,000 or $100,000 debt and then trying to go play gigs for a living.
Oh my gosh, right.
It's like hard enough to try and find work as a musician, but when you have that kind of debt looming over your head, like,
yeah, I mean, what else are you going to do with
that? You have to get a day job to pay your bills, but then your day job keeps you from going out and finding the work you want to do.
Yep.
So it's like, well, then why did you even get a degree in music? Because you're not going to do anything with it. Like,
Right.
unless you want to teach, or maybe like if you're like a legit player, like you want to play in a symphony or something like that. But it's hard for me if you want to be a performer in like the pop world. It's hard for me to tell people now to go to school because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
My-
I would never suggest it.
My suggestion is like, man, find like a private teacher that you like studying with. And if you're a drummer, I wish I would have taken this more seriously. But if you're a drummer, like find a good private teacher you like, but then also find a piano player or a piano teacher. Because as a drummer, I don't think you're not really exposed to the other parts of music theory that other instruments are. Like, you deal with rhythm a lot, but like if you're a guitar player or a bass player or a keyboard player or whatever, like you deal with rhythm, but then you also deal with melody and harmony. And so you learn things, you learn, like your musical knowledge becomes a bit more developed,
Yeah.
and like piano, I guess, is good because for me anyway, it's like easy to visualize music theory concepts. Like in like a tactile way. Like if you do those two things, that's paying for piano lessons and drum lessons is way cheaper than,
Oh my gosh.
and I mean, like I learned really valuable stuff at school, but I remember after my second year, just thinking like, man, I can't keep taking out $20,000 loan every year that I'm going to have to pay back. And that's when I started really, I mean, we had been in touch still, but I remember really feeling you out of like, man, what's Nashville like and all this stuff. And one of the things I always laugh about, hey puppy.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I always laugh about is had I gone back, some of my other classes I was going to take were like recording 101 and like the science of acoustics and things like that.
Oh.
And that would have been super cool. But you know what? I learned all that and way more by moving here because that first year you were working at the tracking room and I came and helped you all the time as a gopher. And I can remember spending long nights, just the two of us going like, oh, well, this room is built like this, which is why it sounds like this. Or like, oh, like they have their patch bay wired like this or whatever. It was like all these things that I'm learning in the real world.
Right.
And it's like all the, like no university can ever have a studio that's on the level of like an Oceanway or a tracking room or something where you can like learn, like, yeah, they might have a small recording studio, but it's not the same as like, oh man, you have a session tomorrow with an orchestra and a rhythm section. Oh, and you have to drop all the headphone boxes and lines and you've got to patch everything in before the session starts tomorrow. Like, I don't think I ever did this, but how many times did you sleep there overnight on one of the big gobos?
Oh my gosh, a lot. I slept there quite a few nights. Yeah. Waiting on cartage. Yeah. Either to come to come and go and pick up their crap or to come and drop off the crap.
Yeah. So like that's my musical upbringing story.
The interesting thing about that whole deal is how we approach that. And then you talking about like finding yourself a good teacher or, that you either you have to respect their ability, right?
Yeah.
Because without that, you're not going to learn anything.
Well, and I think it helps if you find a teacher that is doing what you want to do. Like,
yeah.
Yes, I'm not talking about like your local small town drum teacher. I mean, not saying that they're not good or they don't know their stuff, but at a certain point, you need to go seek out players that you respect and admire and want to be like. Yeah. Because if they teach, then great. Or if they don't teach, they can at least direct you to the people that they learn from. Like the greatest players in the world don't ever stop learning on the instrument, whatever they do. They don't ever go like, well, I know everything now.
Right.
Like you can't, like the guys I all like are always talking about the guys they like that they're learning from,
If the other thing is, if you like what you said, if you find somebody that is doing what you want to do, but they're not teaching, and you're having maybe a difficult time finding someone, find somebody that can teach you, go play music with that person. Like, hang out and just be around them. Don't drive them crazy, but because you're going to be given opportunity to play or whatever, and there's going to be things shared, and you're going to see like techniques used and pick that stuff up.
Yeah, and there'll probably be stuff at first where you're like, I don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest piece of advice, because I've met people that don't do this, and it bugs me, and they can't figure out why they annoy people. When you're in a position to go see someone, like to go sit in on a session, to just shadow somebody for a day, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, don't make you're not even there. No one should know that you're there. Don't get in the way. Right. Keep your ears really open and your eyes. But like, there's nothing you can do that day to show how good you are. Like, nobody cares. It's not
about you.
What are you going to do in 30 seconds? Like, if I sit, like, let's say Shannon Force is a huge inspiration of mine, right? I love that guy's playing. He's a big time player here. If I went and shadowed him on a session, or not even, like, let's say I'm just on a session that he is at, right? Like, that happened a few times at the tracking room where I like, he would be there and I would just be gophering. I never went up and introduced myself. I never tried to tell him, oh, I play drums too. I never was like, yeah, check out this thing that I can do. And like, what am I going to do in 30 seconds on his kit that's going to like justify the years I've spent, like I've already rubbed him the wrong way by doing that. So he's going to be half listening. And second of all, he doesn't care. Like, he's there to get a job done. So I can't show you everything I've learned in my entire life in 30 seconds where you're going to go, oh man, well, you're the next guy. I'm going to call you when I need a sub. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, some of the greatest lessons I learned were watching those guys do sessions in that studio just by sitting in the control room and keeping my mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, sure. Just watching and listening how they went about their business. And, someone would come in, like if it was like who was that acoustic, like Bobby Terry or somebody, someone would come in and be like, oh man, that second bar right there in the bridge, I got to fix that. And you'd be like, this already sounds like a mastered record. But right? But they're hearing something. And so then it's like, okay, well, what are they hearing? And then you pay attention to when they do the next take and you're like, oh, well, they didn't do that, or they did this.
Right.
Like, it makes such a huge difference. I think as a musician, you should always, or you should never lose that willingness to be open and learn something.
Right.
No,
I totally agree with that. So we have reached the end of this episode, but I think where we can pick up on the next one is talking about the contrast between how we did things, especially with recording and being in the same room together in the early 2000s.
Yes.
And where we are now with recording music.
Yep. That's a good idea. Yeah, I like that.
So until then, I gotta take this puppy right here that won't stop making all kinds of racket. I gotta take her outside.
Good share.
Thanks for listening to the Good Share Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or just enjoy the podcast in general, give us 5 stars or thumbs up or whatever it is that you can do through the apparatus that you're using. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell. You can also find more content and more about the podcast at www.goodsharepodcast.com.